We've been told repeatedly that Iran's military was destroyed entirely. Their missile capacity and their ability to pose any threat has been destroyed. That's very clearly not true.
In particular, yes. Trump was able to win young men, young voters in 2024 because he said no more foreign wars, no new foreign wars, and they believed him.
Cyber attacks on our infrastructure here in the United States to a degree that we had not before. We know that our military arsenal has been depleted severely.
Operation Epic Fury was an incredible tactical success, and it doesn't get enough credit for what those planes were able to achieve.
They're currently holding the Strait of Hormuz hostage, the entire oil flow hostage, while Trump has no way out of this.
To break a promise to voters that you may have won once, but you did not win forever, is so damaging to the long-term credibility of the Republican Party.
This Iran war is making us all less safe, and it was under the guise of making America more safe.
Again, about this lingering question of leaving so many people on a plane not deemed safe enough for the president.
It was a serious threat that they obviously believed could have resulted in an attack.
Guys, last night on Abby Phillip Show, MAGA pundits were utterly humiliated when they made a bold claim. Trump has made America safer. The progressive journalists pushed back so hard that these shameless MAGA creeps were completely cornered. Let's see what actually happened on the show, and I'll talk about it as we go.
All right, breaking tonight, a new twist and new reaction to the extraordinary ruse to remove President Trump from Air Force One after a threat from the Iranians. By now, you have heard about the secret switch through a catering truck to another plane, which left members, some of the administration, and the media on the original plane as a decoy. Now, the New York Times reports that the U.S. had identified a threat of a surface-to-air missile against the plane, and that the Iranians knew where he was staying in Turkey. The president spoke about the transfer for the first time tonight.
It's only up to Secret Service. I just follow what they'd like to do. So I go by Secret Service and the military. They wanted me to go on a different flight, a different plane, equal safety, but they wanted me to do it, so I do it. I do what they say. Well, I don't know. I think actually the plane that I flew on was at greater risk. I think it was at greater risk because that would be the plane I think that they would be more likely to go for. I don't worry about anything, to be honest. Whatever it is, you know my attitude? Whatever.
All right, the new reporting, again, is the shoulder-fired missile threat. The new reporting also from CNN is that Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Secretary of Treasury Scott Bessent were actually on the plane that the president left from. So there were still some pretty high-value targets, along with media and other members of the administration, on the Air Force One, the original Air Force One jet. Jason, we were here last night processing this news as it all came in. It sort of had a day to settle in. Any new thoughts here, A, about the Iranian threat, or B, again, about this lingering question of leaving so many people on a plane not deemed safe enough for the president?
Okay, but that's separate from, there's been some language that I heard today talking about an imminent threat, which is not bared out by the reporting. It was a serious threat that they obviously believed could have resulted in an attack, or what seems more likely, given who was actually on the plane, that they just didn't want to risk anything. That the timeline of when we learned what information was coming in and what was done with that information matters. The reason why I push back a little bit on the imminent threat part is, if it was an imminent threat, they would not have had him publicly walk up the stairwell to Air Force One and do any of that. They just would not have done that. We're also making assumptions that people on the plane didn't know. My guess is Marco Rubio probably did know.
Well, 100% the reporters didn't know. I'm not making any assumption there.
No, I don't know if that's true. Because Susan Page today came out, right, and said that she held on to that for 25...
That's a long time ago.
But that's my point, is that she held on to that information and didn't reveal it. She apparently was the only one who knew about that. We don't know if everyone on that plane, one person might have been told, similar to what happened with Bill Clinton, and just choosing to abide by the promise not to release that information, which Susan Page did for 25 years.
I just want to zoom out for a second. We've been told repeatedly that Iran's military was destroyed entirely. Their missile capacity and their ability to pose any threat has been destroyed. That's very clearly not true.
Well, now, this is a surface-to-air missile that's held by one person.
Well, it's kind of
that's a huge difference than talking about the military of Iran.
Has made all of us less safe, and this is one of those rare instances where Donald Trump is now experiencing the consequences of his actions. He can spike prices and be insulated. He can cut health care and be insulated, but this Iran war is making us all less safe, and it was under the guise of making America more safe. They are currently holding the Strait of Hormuz hostage, the entire oil flow hostage, while Trump has no way out of this. This is an endless war.
Guys, this sounds like something out of a political thriller. Last month, Trump was in Turkey for a NATO summit. He was supposed to leave on Air Force One as usual, but there was a possible threat of an Iranian missile attack against the president. His security team reportedly changed the departure arrangements. He was then transported to a smaller military jet using a catering vehicle. Sounds like a movie scene, right? But according to reports, it actually happened. Now let's be honest and put politics aside. This is the president and commander-in-chief of the world's most powerful country. Yet, he had to change his travel plans because of a threat from Iranian missiles. And that raises a much bigger question. If America is supposedly safer, why are these threats getting harder to ignore? So, did this war actually make America safer, or did it create an entirely new set of dangers for Americans? Here's how one American viewer reacted to the incident. What should be the main takeaway from this incident is how Trump had no issue with sacrificing the people below him while secretly escaping to safety, which is the most cowardly way to go about it. Big surprise that the manly Trump would pull a move like that. He's always been a coward. I don't know how MAGA convinced themselves otherwise. Let's be real here, guys. Trump started this conflict against Iran without obtaining approval from Congress. And despite intelligence assessments that Iran posed no imminent threat to the United States, this egotistical clown in power started this war, and now we're seeing the consequences. American bases across the Middle East are fully exposed to Iranian attacks. American troops are losing their lives. And now the U.S. president himself can't simply travel like normal without taking extra security measures. It's not exactly what making America safer was supposed to look like. The war was supposed to eliminate threats. Instead, it seems to have created new ones. And here comes the part that Trump and his cronies can't spin. The consequences of this war aren't staying overseas. They are coming into American homes. Before this war, American households were already struggling with the cost of everyday life. Then came this war because of the stupidity and hubris of Trump. In retaliation to American and Israeli attacks, Iran disrupted the Strait of Hormuz, a passage critical to global oil supplies. And then almost immediately, oil markets exploded with uncertainty. The strait became a major economic pressure point. Energy costs started climbing, and the effects quickly began showing up in the daily lives of all working-class Americans.
Specifically against Trump for a very long time.
Now the American people are suffering.
I would say two things can be true at the same time. Operation Epic Fury was an incredible tactical success, and it doesn't get enough credit for what those planes were able to achieve. It did severely degrade their nuclear facilities to an immense degree, and we also degraded a lot of their other armaments. There is some remaining. I'm not disputing that. And I do think, it only takes one maniac in the regime to launch this sort of thing and to attempt to assassinate the president. And I think what that shows is the perils of early on the communication of were we going for regime change or weren't we?
It's the perils of...
Camille, I've been seeing your face, and you were like agreeing and disagreeing with everyone who was speaking sort of simultaneously. So I'm just trying to decode what the face was.
No, this is my proclivity. I don't have a particular team, so I just try to see what makes sense and go with that. No, look, I'm inclined to agree that the real story here isn't so much the security concerns and precautions that were taken. It seems eminently reasonable to me for Secret Service to make the decision that they made. It also seems reasonable to me for the people who travel in the press corps with the President of the United States on Air Force One in the Middle East to understand that there is a degree of risk that you accept when you travel in the motorcade, as I've had in the past. So that, I think, just stands there. But the thing that we ought to be talking about is the conflict that the United States of America entered into voluntarily that has, in fact, increased the level of risk.
Guys, here's the part that Americans can actually feel. You don't need to be anywhere near Iran to pay the price for this war. You can be sitting in Texas, California, Florida, Ohio, wherever, and still feel the impact of this war on your everyday life. Let's start with gas. Because Iran disrupted a passage that carries 1/5 of the global oil supply, the markets panicked, and Americans felt it immediately at the pump. But you know what? Gas is only the beginning. Farmers need fuel to operate agriculture equipment. Factories need fuel to produce goods. Ships, planes, trucks, they all need fuel to move those goods. Almost every product on a store shelf carries energy and transportation costs, and eventually those costs show up in your wallet. Before this war, the economy was already under pressure. Americans were already struggling because of the rising cost of everyday life, from housing to healthcare. Now, thanks to Trump's stupid decisions, gas and grocery prices have also started climbing. And to make things worse, it's created problems for the military as well. America may have the most powerful military in the world, but that doesn't mean its ammunition supply is unlimited. During this war, the United States has fired huge numbers of very expensive interceptor missiles and precision weapons to counter Iran's cheap drones. And each of these sophisticated interceptors can take nearly a year to manufacture. And you can't just produce hundreds of missiles next week. It takes skilled workers, specialized parts, factories, testing, years of production. And those stockpiles are not unlimited. They're being depleted rapidly. These things become even more alarming when we consider America's major rivals. While the Trump administration is focused on Iran, China and Russia are watching closely. There's another rising threat. It's called cyber attacks. That opens another battlefield entirely. Iran-linked hackers are targeting American infrastructure, making it another headache for the Trump administration. Trump has been telling Americans for months that the U.S. forces have crushed Iran's fighting capability and we are winning the war. But now reality is beginning to catch up. Washington now needs an exit strategy, but the biggest challenge for Trump is making it look like a victory rather than a surrender. Now he desperately wants to normalize shipping through the Strait of Hormuz. And most importantly, he needs time to rebuild those munition stockpiles, a process that could take years. Guys, during his campaign, Trump promised to put America first. He promised no new wars. He promised to make life easier for working Americans. And above all, he promised to make America safer. So what actually happened? The reality looks almost exactly like the opposite of what he promised. Because of the dumb actions of Trump and his brainless cronies, Americans may now be facing more risks at home than abroad. The president who promised to make America safer was himself reportedly forced to change his travel plans because of a missile threat.
Associated with the presidency, but for the country as a whole, we've seen cyber attacks on our infrastructure here in the United States to a degree that we had not before. We know that our military arsenal has been depleted severely in ways that all of our adversaries are looking at and kind of smacking their lips, wondering how can we further exacerbate these problems for the United States of America. All of this is downstream from an imprudent decision that the President of the United States made. However successful the kind of tactical decisions were broadly with respect to the campaign, he knew that the munitions were limited, that they were in short supply, and chose, again, voluntarily, without anything suggesting we needed to do it right then, that this was the course of action he was going to take. And it seems like a bad call in retrospect.
All of that and bad politics. In particular,
Yes.
Trump was able to win young men, young voters in 2024 because he said no more foreign wars, no new foreign wars. And they believed him. To break a promise to voters that you may have won once, but you did not win forever is so damaging to the long-term credibility of the Republican Party in a way that I don't know how you come back from.
All right, friends, I want to thank you all.
So, what do you think? Has Trump actually made America safer? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you made it this far, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. I'll see you soon with the next one.